Fiancé Hugh, a psychologist, fell in love with his patient Daniella. Without hesitation, I reported their relationship to the hospital. Hugh was punished. Daniella also committed suicide due to depression. And I, too, faced Hugh's wrath. Being pushed down the stairs. Falling in love with Daniella was my mistake. But how dare you drive her to death? Rewind. I have been reborn. I hear the 18-year-old Hugh and Daniella exchanging voice messages. He simply clarifies. His tone affectionate. Grace is just my neighbor. It's you I love. My little rose. Separated by a door. In my hand, I clutch Hugh's cancer diagnosis. The paper crumpled. Chapter 1. Hugh and I grew up together. Our families were close. The adults often joked about arranging a childhood engagement. Almost everyone assumed we were a couple, just waiting for the right moment to make it official. During the winter break of our senior year, both Hugh and I had medical checkups. I was healthy, with all indicators normal. Hugh, however, was diagnosed with early-stage leukemia during this checkup. The moment I received the report, I went to Hugh's house and we looked at the report together. Thanks to timely treatment, the cancer cells in Hugh's body didn't spread, and he was cured within a year. In my previous life, I missed the college entrance exams that year to stay with him during his chemotherapy. After repeating a year, I still didn't get into my dream university and major. After Hugh recovered, he excelled in the exams. He unexpectedly got into the most prestigious medical school. After graduation, he even became a sought-after psychologist. This time, I won't sacrifice my future and youth to help a scumbag grow. I placed the medical report on the entrance cabinet at the Sun family's house. I also returned the key to their home. Mr. Sun was always busy with business, leaving early and returning late. Mrs. Sun loved socializing and playing cards. She wouldn't stop until she had her fill. As for when they would see that medical report, who knows? Chapter 2. Back home, I watched as my parents, who looked much younger, were excitedly discussing something. It really felt like a lifetime had passed. When my dad saw me come home, he told me that the family was planning to buy a new house. The house we lived in was allocated by the company years ago. By the time I was in my senior year of high school, 3 generations had already lived there. In my past life, my parents had finally saved enough for a down payment on a house. But because I didn't want to abandon Hugh when he was seriously ill, and when the Sun family couldn't afford Hugh's medical expenses, I even asked my parents to take part of the down payment to help the Sun family. This time, I sincerely smiled and responded enthusiastically at the dinner table. Sure. Are you thinking about the development in the south of the city? My parents exchanged a glance. They had been considering several developments, and the one in the south of the city was their favorite. We lived in the east of the city, with my school and my parents' workplaces all in the city center. Commuting to school and work wouldn't be affected. But, my mom asked concernedly, will it affect your studies? I smiled gently. Mom, in the second half of my senior year, I can stay in the school dorms. But, my mom's gaze paused. But it will be hard for me to help you move. After I said that, my mom obviously breathed a sigh of relief. After dinner, I went back to my room to review my homework. In reality, I was listening closely to my parents' conversation in the other room. My dad was washing dishes while talking to my mom. Kids are unpredictable. How can they be so sure? Today, you sounded her out. And didn't she say it wouldn't affect her? My mom, still uneasy, said, let's hope so. Moving far away, will Grace really be willing to leave Hugh? My dad was more optimistic. Grace has always prioritized her studies. Don't worry, she has her own mind. Chapter 3. In my past life, after I started dating Hugh, my mom was always skeptical about our relationship. I asked her why. You always give so much, and Hugh has gotten used to your giving. This kind of relationship is actually unstable. Once, at that time, my mom didn't finish, but I interrupted her. Back then, Hugh was all I could think about. I just thought, with our feelings for each other over so many years, how could it possibly be unstable? Until the day Hugh missed our wedding dress appointment, and I went to the hospital to find him. I saw him holding Daniella on the desk. the two of them passionately kissing. Heh, there's really nothing in this world that's so stable it can't be broken. I secretly took a photo through the crack in the door. Then I sent it to all the hospital leaders' emails. If Hugh had cheated with someone else, maybe I wouldn't have been so angry and crazy, insisting that they both be ruined. But he cheated with Daniella. In my past life, Daniella was the poor transfer student Hugh inexplicably fell in love with during his senior year of high school. For her, Hugh bore the stigma of early romance. His grades plummeted. He skipped classes, got into fights, and even got suspended. He violated every taboo a student could. But Daniella, she messed up Hugh's youth, nearly ruining his future. After Hugh was diagnosed with cancer, she immediately cut ties with him. I even helped Hugh, who was battling cancer, to find her later on. But the Daniella I found was completely different from the gentle, resilient girl she pretended to be. She had affairs with many rich second-generation heirs. I looked at Hugh, struggling to survive in his hospital bed, and I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. Years later, when Hugh and I were about to get married, they ended up together again. My many years of love with Hugh, like a child I had painstakingly raised, drowned in that so-called river of time. My heart ached as if it were bleeding. So, I wanted them to hurt even more than I did. But after everything was exposed, I didn't get to see Hugh come to me with repentance and apologies. Daniella died. It was completely unexpected. I had no idea her depression was real. I thought it was just a trick to gain sympathy and get back with Hugh. Just like in high school, when she pretended to be a pitiful poor student but could still get into a Cayenne parked around the corner. She was too good at those things. Hugh, however, blamed everything on me. He fought with me. Falling in love with Daniella was my fault. But why did you have to kill her? I retorted without backing down. Did I really kill her? Why don't you say it's because you're a lousy doctor who couldn't cure her? Hugh, you're the one with no medical ethics. Treating depression. Did you have to treat it in bed? You have a fiancé, and she knew you were getting married. You both made the mistake first. So why put all the blame on me? Hugh laughed and cried, on the brink of a mental breakdown. But it didn't stop him from pushing me right out the window. Chapter 4. The sudden sensation of free-falling from a great height. It all overlapped with what happened in my dreams. I screamed in shock. My parents heard me and immediately rushed into my room to comfort me. Grace, what's wrong? Don't be afraid. It's just a dream. Just a dream? I looked up, saw my concerned parents in front of me, and wiped the sweat from my forehead. Mom, Dad, can we move out sooner? My parents exchanged glances and agreed. After my rebirth, I had two small goals. First, wait for Hugh to die. Second, make sure he dies far away. Chapter 5. Before the new semester started, I stayed home and didn't go out. Hugh texted and called me, but I just looked and didn't reply. I also muted all group chats related to him, since his family lived just upstairs from mine. He came looking for me several times, but either I didn't answer the door, or my parents brushed him off. Hugh was confused. In the past, I always made him the center of my life, revolving around him. My sudden disappearance was something he wasn't used to. But soon, his life was filled by Daniella. On social media, he started posting about picking vegetables in the countryside at dawn, taking pictures of the morning light and sunrise on a little cart carrying the vegetables, and sharing amusing stories from the market. At such a critical moment in our senior year, he had the leisure to travel from his home in the city center to Daniella's house in the countryside to help out, while all the students were burning the midnight oil, preparing for the college entrance exam. He was basking in the morning sun in the countryside, sweating in the fields. My eyes were red from exhaustion, reviewing endless practice tests, trying to claw back every precious point. He was haggling with customers at the market, passionately discussing the price of a pound of vegetables. His posts on social media revealed a shift in his mindset. The days when he didn't have to worry about life and could focus on studying, he now found boring, stifling, and suffocating. But the buying and selling at the market, to him, was vibrant, full of passion, and filled with the essence of life. I couldn't quite tell if it was Daniella's charm or if Hugh's cancer had muddled his brain. He blocked his parents and teachers from seeing his social media, but he shared everything openly with his classmates and friends. His close friends couldn't just stand by and watch him lose his mind. They tried to talk sense into him, only to be persuaded by him to buy a few more pounds of vegetables before leaving. They had no choice but to seek help from the teachers, Hugh's parents, and even me, hoping we could talk some sense into him. Chapter 6. My high school deskmate, Melissa, who used to be the biggest supporter of me and Hugh as a couple, called me, sounding like she was about to explode. "What's going on with you and Hugh? How did he turn into a heartless Don Juan over just one winter break? Messing around with other girls?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Don't laugh. Did Hugh break up with you?" I told Melissa about Hugh's confession to Daniella. Hugh and I grew up together as neighbors, so we might have seemed close. But he never confessed to me, and I never said I liked him. Melissa, we were never together, so there's no breakup to talk about. Melissa paused for a moment, then launched into a tirade. "What a jerk Hugh is. He even remembers your period and brings you heat pads and ginger tea. How is that just being neighbors?" When we split into science and liberal arts classes, Hugh was better at science, but he chose liberal arts just to be with you. He even had a huge fight with the homeroom teacher in the office, and it was only because you gave in that you both ended up in the science class. During holidays, when haven't you helped him prepare gifts? And he always returned the favor. The only thing missing between you two was a confession. How did it come to this? I listened quietly as Melissa recounted everything. In the end, my heart tightened. Was it really just a confession we were missing? In my past life, I received that confession at Hugh's hospital bed. When Hugh saw me, exhausted and asleep by his bedside, he couldn't help but stroke my hair and softly said those words. "Grace, I like you." Such a beautiful promise. But it was because we were too young. What I thought was unwavering love, in reality, it was just Hugh feeling pity or gratitude toward me. I could do everything in my power to save Hugh's life, but Hugh could also, because of Daniella's death, easily take mine. Who really loved who with unwavering devotion? Isn't the answer obvious? Melissa. Hugh is just one person. How could he be more important than the college entrance exam? Melissa's family had money. Even if she didn't do well on the college entrance exam, she could still be sent abroad to study, so she could ship couples without any pressure. But I couldn't. Melissa, being her cheerful self, didn't dwell on it. Screw that jerk. When we get to college, Grace, you'll have your pick of handsome guys. I laughed it off, not taking it seriously. I had already wasted too much for a relationship that wasn't worth it. Now, it was time for me to start reclaiming my life. Chapter 7. That night, we were having dinner at home. Suddenly, we heard loud arguments and the sound of things being smashed coming from upstairs at Hugh's place. My dad stood up. He and Mr. Sun, Hugh's father, had once worked together. Hearing the commotion, his first instinct was to go up and try to mediate. My mom frowned and told him to wait. My parents exchanged a glance and then looked at me. I calmly said, "Dad, they're all worked up right now. Why don't you wait a bit before going?" My dad hesitated for a moment, then sat back down. My mom said quietly, "The neighbors are all talking about it. Hugh's been going out to help a girl sell vegetables, and someone familiar saw him and told his parents." My dad picked up his chopsticks again. "Oh, so that's what it was." Since it didn't concern our family, there was no need to get involved. But after dinner, to our surprise, Mrs. Sun showed up at our door, leading Hugh, who had a bruised and swollen face. My parents were both taken aback, but they couldn't just turn them away. My mom was pulled to the sofa by Mrs. Sun, who started pouring out her grievances. At first, we thought she just needed to vent, but then Mrs. Sun pointed at Hugh, who was standing stiffly in the living room, and scolded. "This child has always been close with your Grace. It's all that vegetable-selling girl's fault for stirring things up, making him neglect his studies at such a critical time in his senior year to go help her in the countryside. Our families have been close for so many years. I only acknowledge Grace, and I won't let that vegetable girl ruin Hugh's future. It's Hugh who's wronged Grace. You need to bring Grace out here, and Hugh must apologize to her." Mrs. Sun's words were jumbled and contradictory, but her intention was clear. She wanted to tie me and Hugh together. My mom gently removed Mrs. Sun's hand. You're just too upset right now. Who is this vegetable girl? What's her relationship with Hugh? And what does this have to do with Grace? My dad quickly added. Grace hasn't even left the house all winter break and hasn't seen Hugh at all. Isn't that right? Hugh, who had been singled out, looked sullen and proud as he said, Mom, stop wasting your breath. I only like Daniella. Grace and I have nothing to do with each other. My mom chuckled softly. Mrs. Sun, did you hear what Hugh just said? Who Hugh likes has nothing to do with Grace. The only relationship they have is that of classmates and neighbors. Nothing more. My dad also hardened his tone. They're in their senior year now. Why are you still thinking about who they're involved with? I need to have a talk with old Mr. Sun and see what he means by all this. Seeing Hugh ruin her plan and my parents not playing along, Mrs. Sun stopped crying, quickly pulling Hugh out of our house. She had come without telling Mr. Sun. If he found out, there would be another huge argument at home. As my dad closed the door, he called out, Don't come back again. After the door was shut, he turned to my mom and complained, We need to move out of here soon. Neighbors like this, who think they can barge in and treat our daughter as a backup plan just because of a few years of neighborly relations. They think Hugh is some treasure, and our daughter can't live without him? What nonsense. Chapter 8. The apartment complex in the south of the city was a second-hand property, but the previous owner had never lived there, so it was as good as new. The furniture and appliances were all in place, so it was almost like we were just moving in with our bags. On the day of the move, my dad hired a large truck to transport some important items. Our neighbors of many years kept asking why we were moving so suddenly. My dad laughed and said, Out with the old, in with the new. We were going to move eventually, so doing it now saves us some trouble. Mrs. Sun was hiding on her balcony, secretly watching us move. She didn't dare to show her face, afraid of attracting gossip. But then Hugh, with his bruised and swollen face, appeared. He looked anxious and worried as he asked, Grace, why is your family moving so quickly? I replied irritably, So that no one can treat me as a backup plan. He quickly explained, Grace, that was my mom's idea. I never thought. I cut him off. I was home that day, and I heard it all. Hugh, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Hugh's lips turned pale. My words seemed to have the effect of a final verdict in court. Hugh and I had long since ceased to have any relationship. As we spoke, I caught sight of a thin figure peeking around the corner of the entrance to the complex. It was Daniella. I deliberately leaned closer, making it look like Hugh and I were standing close together, as if we couldn't bear to part. Hugh was still trying to salvage something. Grace, can we still be friends? I gave him a mocking smile. Hugh, don't think too highly of yourself. I don't even want to be neighbors with you, so why would I want to be friends? If it weren't for the fact that it's inconvenient to transfer schools in our senior year, I wouldn't want to see you again from now on. Just like you said, we have nothing to do with each other. I emphasized the words we. Hugh's face showed a hint of heartbreak. Look at that. After he casually reduced our more than 10 years of childhood friendship to being mere neighbors, now that I was really distancing myself from his life as he wished, he suddenly started feeling nostalgic. How pathetic. My mom called out, Grace, it's time to go. Coming. I responded cheerfully and ran to my parents like a bird returning to its nest. It was only after being reborn that I truly understood the saying. The caged bird longs for its old forest, and the pond fish yearns for its deep abyss. No matter how fierce the storm outside, at least I still had a home. Chapter 9. After the truck was fully loaded, our family got into our car and waited for the property management to open the gate. As expected, I saw Daniella crying as she ran into Hugh's arms. This was during the busiest time of the day in the complex. Mrs. Sun had been watching everything from her window the whole time. How could she not see the vegetable-selling girl she despised, openly running to her son right outside their building to seduce him? It wasn't long before Mrs. Sun rushed downstairs, forcibly pulling the two apart, and then slapped Daniella across the face. The security guards, eager to watch the drama unfold. Took their time. My dad frowned and honked the horn. Hugh looked over. In the rearview mirror, I could see his confused and embarrassed expression. This shameful and awkward scene was witnessed by our entire family. As we drove away, the security guard even gave us a see you later gesture. My dad, his face flushed with embarrassment, said, "We've known each other for years. They probably feel it's unfair for our family, so they deliberately slowed down to make sure we saw the whole show." Pfft. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Laughter is contagious. My mom and dad also couldn't hold back and started laughing, though it might not be kind. Deep down, I couldn't help but think, serves them right. Chapter 10. After being reborn, I had two small goals. First, wait for Hugh to die. Second, make sure he dies far away. Chapter 11. After we moved, my parents let me choose my room first, and I picked the one facing east. In the early morning, I could see the first ray of sunlight. It felt like a new beginning. The gentle sunlight dancing across my pages felt like playful little sprites. I had lived a whole life, and it had been a muddled one. Time was too precious for me now. With only a few months left before the college entrance exam, I asked my parents if they could help me find a one-on-one tutor. They didn't say much but were quietly relieved that the whole situation with Hugh hadn't affected me too much. They quickly found a suitable tutor through some connections. He was a sophomore from a prestigious university named Angelo. True to his name, he was a natural at science. Even the most tedious science subjects became clear and profound when he explained them. In my previous life, I had repeated a year. The college entrance exam had always been a source of regret and frustration for me. Even years later, I had nightmares many times, finding myself back in the exam room, staring at blank spaces on the big science questions. I was so nervous I couldn't breathe, trying to start writing, but nothing came out. The exam paper in the dream was blurry, and I couldn't understand a single word. When I woke up, I was filled with a painful urge to cry, but Hugh, lying next to me, would just sneer and say, "After all these years, you're still scared of the college entrance exam?" No comfort at all. He had already achieved success, so of course, he didn't care about my feelings. But I couldn't just let it go. Only then did I realize that what I feared most wasn't the exam itself but the overwhelming sense of losing control over my own fate. Chapter 12. Winter break ended, and I returned to school. Melissa greeted me with concern, wrapping her arm around mine. "Grace, are you okay?" I was puzzled. Melissa explained, "Didn't you see the class group chat? An anonymous account posted a video on the campus confession wall." I watched the video on Melissa's phone. It showed Daniella going to your building, hugging Hugh, and then getting beaten by Mrs. Sun. Melissa continued, "The whole school is buzzing about it. They're saying that you and Hugh were childhood sweethearts. But somehow, Daniella, the little first-year White Lotus, managed to steal him away. Some people are even saying that you shot the video and that the anonymous account is you. They're all waiting to see how you'll win Hugh back." I frowned. This slander had splashed right onto me. Hugh and I were in the same class. I thought seeing him again would just be awkward, but it turned out trouble was finding its way to me. After class, the homeroom teacher gave the entire class a stern lecture from the podium. "This is the most critical time of your senior year. Can't you respect yourselves and others and stop with these ridiculous love dramas?" I raised my hand and requested to change seats. The teacher glared at me for a moment, then turned his glare toward Hugh, who sat in front of me. In the end, he moved both of us to the farthest corners of the classroom, almost as if he were exiling us to the edges of the world. Our grades had always been in the top 10 of the class, and sometimes Hugh even topped the entire grade in a single subject. The homeroom teacher might tolerate someone ruining their own future, but he wouldn't allow it to affect other students. I told my dad about the situation, and he immediately brought the neighborhood surveillance footage to the homeroom teacher. The footage showed that our family was busy moving out and leaving the neighborhood. As for Daniella running to Hugh and getting slapped by Mrs. Sun, our car had already left the neighborhood by then. Comparing the video's angle and timeline, it was impossible for me to have shot that video. My dad also repeatedly assured the teacher that I had only been Hugh's neighbor for many years. If certain people don't respect themselves, why should my daughter be dragged down with them? It's senior year. If this affects my daughter's emotions, how will she prepare for the college entrance exam? Hearing how angry my dad was, the homeroom teacher felt ashamed and promised to clear up the situation for me. Chapter 13. The video on the confession wall was quickly taken down. Daniella's homeroom teacher in the first year called her parents to the school, knowing they were in the wrong. Her parents chose to discipline her publicly by dragging her forward and slapping her hard across the face. Coincidentally, Hugh, who had also been called in that day, witnessed the scene and immediately rushed over to confront Daniella's father. It was during a class break, and many teachers and students on different floors of the hallway witnessed the dramatic scene. Even Melissa couldn't resist running out to watch. As for me, I put on my headphones, blocking out the drama from my world. An ambulance arrived at the school. During the scuffle with Daniella's father, Hugh was pushed on the head, which caused him to collapse and start bleeding profusely from his nose. Many people were frightened. When he was taken to the hospital, the doctors conducted several tests before solemnly informing Mr. and Mrs. Sun about Hugh's condition. Mr. and Mrs. Sun were stunned. Just a few days ago, their son was fine after getting beaten up. How could a simple push reveal that he had leukemia? The news spread through the school, making many people feel like they were living in a real-life version of a tragic youth novel. The male and female protagonists, coming from vastly different backgrounds, were cruelly kept apart by the people around them, yet they still loved each other recklessly, defying their parents and throwing away their chances at the college entrance exam. Now, with Hugh diagnosed with cancer, this youthful romance gained an additional layer of tragic and touching emotion. Even Melissa was getting frustrated. Seriously, just a few days ago, Hugh was betraying you, and Daniella was taking over. How did it turn into a tragic love story? I smiled and ruffled Melissa's hair. Focus on your studies. This kind of storyline is so over the top that even soap operas would reject it. Why waste time on it? Melissa sighed in frustration. Right. Even reading books is better than watching those jerks. Heh. This story no longer needs me as the lovesick and malicious supporting character. Life is far more ruthless than any fictional villain. They'll learn that soon enough. Chapter 14. Due to his illness, Hugh couldn't come to school. It was clear that he wouldn't be able to take the college entrance exam this year either. Many of our classmates felt sorry for him and organized themselves into groups to visit him. But I didn't. Since he was in the early stages of treatment, Hugh sat on his hospital bed, holding Daniella's hand, smiling brightly. You should all envy me. I've found something more precious than life itself, true love. This line became something of a classic. Some friends who knew both Hugh and me would cautiously ask if I really didn't want to visit him. I would always raise the book or exam paper in my hand. There are more important things than visiting a patient. At that, they couldn't really argue. After all, they had as much to read and as many papers to fill out as I did. Heartless? Cold? Hugh and I had been ambiguously close for so many years, and many people thought we were a couple. Hugh never clarified. Later, when Daniella entered Hugh's life, he suddenly became eager to explain. Who am I to Hugh? Was I his to summon at will and dismiss as he pleased? He made mistakes and got sick, but that didn't mean he should drag me down with him. Some people would gossip behind my back, but if Melissa overheard, she would always fiercely defend me. Didn't Hugh say he found something more precious than life itself, love? If they're so great together, why are you talking about Grace? Unintentionally, I had purified her from being a fan of our supposed couple. As time passed, people stopped paying attention to me. Those who were interested in the situation were more focused on watching what Daniella would do. Chapter 15. At first, Daniella, who had become the center of the gossip, often took leave or came to school late. There was no need to ask why. Whenever someone did, she would tearfully mumble, Hugh is in the hospital. I need to go see him. When Melissa heard about it, she couldn't help but roll her eyes. Didn't they say it was in the early stages? Why does she act like he's on his deathbed? Her words were harsh, but I enjoyed hearing them. Still, I wouldn't let her dwell on it. I would just hand her more exam papers to practice with. Melissa, who had been at the bottom of the class throughout high school, suddenly saw her scores jump by over 100 points in the most recent exam. When she got her paper back, Her expression was as incredulous as our homeroom teacher's. She couldn't help but shout in excitement. "Grace, are these scores real? Did I really get this? This is the first time in my life I've scored so high without cheating." The homeroom teacher didn't even mention the possibility of her cheating. Given Melissa's personality and background, cheating was unnecessary for her. The teacher smiled at the whole class and said, "See? Until the very last moment before the college entrance exam, anything is possible. Keep working hard, boys and girls." Exactly. Who says that youth is only meaningful if it involves love? Studying and exams can be just as exhilarating. The whole class burst into laughter. Everyone felt a surge of motivation and a sense of achievement. Melissa became obsessed with studying. Once she set her mind to it, she only slept 3 hours a day. She stopped wearing colored contacts, stopped applying eyeliner, and only washed her face with water. Even if staying up late caused her to break out, she didn't care. She told me, "Now I understand how good it feels to be fulfilled. It's like if I work hard enough, I can really grasp something." A pang of emotion hit me, and I smiled softly. That feeling of grasping your own destiny, it was an opportunity one lost in my past life. Chapter 16. Half a semester had passed, and Daniella had skipped so many classes that it was becoming a serious issue. The school could sympathize with Hugh's illness, but they couldn't continue to tolerate Hugh and Daniella's early romance. It was severely damaging the school's reputation. They advised Daniella's parents that it might be best for her to take a leave of absence. Daniella's parents had limited means, and it wasn't easy for them to support their child's education. In the end, their daughter wasn't attending school and was instead serving as a free nurse at someone's bedside. They were heartbroken. What hurt them the most was the attitude of Mr. and Mrs. Sun. Even though it was their daughter who had sacrificed her education for Hugh, the Sun family looked down on them as if they were trying to take advantage of the situation. In this environment, could Hugh and Daniella's relationship remain unshaken? The whole world wasn't going to make way for their dramatic love story. While I was working hard for my future, I waited to see the inevitable dead end their love would reach. But one day, during a break, Daniella came to find me. She wanted to ask me to visit Hugh in the hospital. Chapter 17. I'm not a doctor. I can't cure his cancer. What good would it do if I went? You are his love, more precious to him than life itself. If I go, would it be to comfort him with the years of neighborly affection? Or why don't you tell me what you expect me to say or do when I go that would make him as satisfied as you are? Daniella couldn't say a word. Her eyes reddened as if she had been grievously wronged by me. This trick worked wonders in front of Hugh. She didn't have to do anything, and she would win. But now she was standing at the doorway of the senior class, as the center of all the gossip. Her presence at the door seemed almost like a challenge. Melissa pushed through the crowd of onlookers and shouted, "What are you all looking at? Watching her isn't as good as studying and doing your work." Our homeroom teacher, who was following behind, frowned and gave Daniella a stern look. "You're a first-year student, right? What brings you to the senior class?" Daniella timidly replied, "I came to see Grace." The homeroom teacher gave a half-smile. "You're Hugh's little girlfriend, right? Shouldn't you be at the hospital with Hugh at a time like this?" Daniella's pitiful face flushed red and then paled, only to turn red again. Everyone in the school knew about their tragic love story. What was there to deny? "I wanted to ask Grace to visit Hugh." The teacher cut her off. "Hugh is also my student, and I'm keeping an eye on his condition. His recent chemotherapy has been tough on him. He's lost all his hair and is feeling pretty miserable. Would it really be appropriate for us to visit him in that state?" Daniella tried to use moral blackmail, but the teacher skillfully deflected it. I found it amusing. Why did she think everyone else was too stupid to see through her little tricks? Had she gained so much confidence from manipulating Hugh? Seeing that she wouldn't give up, Melissa spoke up. "Teacher, why don't we go as student representatives to visit Hugh this afternoon?" For some reason, the teacher immediately agreed. Daniella's eyes widened in shock. Clearly, this wasn't the outcome she had expected. Most people just wanted to watch the drama unfold. My life isn't a play for others' entertainment. They can watch all they want, but I can also choose not to perform. But since Daniella loves to act so much, I'll let her act to her heart's content. Chapter 18. Hugh's condition was indeed not good. His eyes were sunken with dark circles, his cheeks hollow, and he was so thin that he barely looked human, a moving skeleton. Really, when Melissa saw him, she looked like she had seen a ghost. This was a sight I had seen in my previous life. Back then, my heart had nearly shattered from the pain. I had turned away, unable to hold back my tears. Now, Hugh lay in bed, wearing a wool hat that covered what little hair he had left, lifelessly staring at the ceiling. His illness caused bouts of dizziness and vomiting. Mrs. Sun was cleaning up his vomit. The entire room was filled with a nauseating smell. Melissa couldn't take it anymore and rushed to the bathroom. Hearing the sound, Mrs. Sun, without turning around, began to scold. "Daniella, you little brat. Where are you running off to?" When the homeroom teacher and I looked around, Daniella was already gone. Mrs. Sun froze in place, especially after she saw me. Her movements became even more awkward and unsure. "Grace, it's you." Hugh heard my name and struggled to sit up. Mrs. Sun tried to help him, but he pushed her away. He insisted on sitting up without a word. When he saw me, he forced a smile onto his pale face. He was acting too, acting like a normal Hugh. He was such a proud person. How could he possibly want to see me in such a state, letting his dignity be trampled? I heard Mrs. Sun sniffle, and then I spoke to him. "Hugh, how are you doing? It was Daniella who asked us to come see you, hoping to give you some encouragement. We're about to take the college entrance exam. I really hope you get better and join us in crossing that bridge together." Even the simplest words of encouragement were bitterly ironic to Hugh in his current state. The homeroom teacher and Mrs. Sun stepped aside to talk. A storm of emotions swirled in Hugh's eyes. "Daniella asked you to come." "Yes. She said you wanted to see your teachers and classmates." I had to let him know about Daniella's thoughtful little arrangement. Hugh suddenly shoved the barrier in front of him away and collapsed back onto the bed, his body convulsing uncontrollably. The homeroom teacher quickly called for the doctors and nurses. Through the hospital room door, Mrs. Sun's sobs were heartbreaking, and the teacher let out a deep sigh. I gently patted Mrs. Sun's shoulder and handed her a pack of tissues. "Mrs. Sun, Hugh is so strong. He'll get through this for Daniella." Mrs. Sun looked up at me with a completely devastated expression. Chapter 19. Daniella and Hugh broke up. Chapter 20. It was, after all, a simple matter, just like their love, which had started without any real reason. It ended just as quickly. Daniella could no longer see any sign of love in the care she was providing. She was, after all, still a student, but she had to keep taking leave from school, caring for Hugh in the hospital like a nanny. During that time, she had to endure Mrs. Sun's constant scolding, her own parents' complaints, and the criticism of teachers and classmates at school. She couldn't take it anymore. "It's not like I gave you leukemia, so why does everyone act like it's my fault?" Hugh looked at her as if she were a stranger. "Then why did you make Grace come see me?" Daniella froze for a moment, then stiffened her neck and said, "You've known Grace since you were kids. How could I not know that you have feelings for her too?" Hugh was taken aback. After so many years of being together, he did feel differently about me. But ever since Daniella had appeared, he had been drawn to her. Daniella was like a wild rose growing in the wilderness, vibrant and full of life. Unlike me, who was always focused on studying, her poverty didn't diminish her. Instead, it highlighted her genuine nature. The first time they met was when a child fell in front of a wealthy person's car on the street. Daniella rushed forward to protect the child, arguing passionately with the rich man. At that moment, Daniella was brave and resilient, shining brightly. That was when Hugh fell for her. That's why he fell in love with Daniella. He was even willing to fight against his family, argue with his parents. For her, why couldn't Daniella be as steadfast in her love as he was? Why, after just a few months, was she saying she was tired? "Daniella, even if you pity me, you shouldn't be saying this to me now." Daniella cut him off. "I've pitied you enough. Why should I pity you anymore? I'm not Grace." Chapter 21. To continue her studies and reduce the impact of rumors on her, Daniella transferred to another city. Her parents, who had originally come to the city to work, didn't see much difference in moving to another place. Daniella's family didn't even leave a word for Mr. and Mrs. Sun. When they went to look for Daniella, her homeroom teacher simply relayed that Daniella had broken up with Hugh and asked them not to disturb her anymore. Mr. and Mrs. Sun were furious. But what grounds did they have to blame Daniella? When you really look at it, this early romance seemed more like Hugh had delayed Daniella's future. Even Daniella's homeroom teacher and others felt the same. The once grand and dramatic tragic love story ended up being nothing more than a fleeting storm that passed after a few months. The students and teachers at school were busy with their own lives. When they heard about it, they just smiled and moved on. My parents heard about it too. After a bit of sighing and lamenting behind my back, they didn't say much more. Heh, in the face of life and death, what can a mere few months of early romance withstand? I was foolish in my past life, thinking that because Hugh and I were childhood friends for over 10 years, I couldn't abandon him. I stayed by Hugh's side through life and death. But in the end, as soon as Daniella appeared, all those feelings turned to ashes. It's true, those who are favored are always fearless. I had cared for a gravely ill Hugh, and the process was exhausting, both physically and mentally. So, I knew early on that a girl like Daniella, who was only in her teens, wouldn't be able to handle it. But I still wanted to see their love shattered by reality, and I wanted to see Hugh in his miserable state, clinging to life. Chapter 22. Hugh didn't disappoint me. As expected, he plunged into memories of Daniella. Mr. and Mrs. Sun had to put in a lot of effort to rekindle his will to live and push him to continue treatment. I stopped paying attention to Hugh and Daniella's situation. With Angelo's help, my grades in science steadily improved, finally making up for my previous weaknesses. That June, I walked into the college entrance exam room. While waiting for the results, Melissa and I embarked on a whirlwind trip, visiting 3 cities in 7 days. In addition to experiencing the beauty of our country, we also stumbled upon some unexpected surprises. The exam results came out soon after. I got into the 211 university I had longed for in my past life. Melissa, making up for lost time, was accepted into a second-tier university. For most people, her achievement might not seem remarkable, but for Melissa's parents, it was a huge relief and a piece of fantastic news. Melissa declined the offer to study abroad and told her parents she wanted to repeat the year, aiming to get into the same university as me next year. Melissa's parents, of course, supported her decision. Chapter 23. After my first year at university started, I heard about Hugh again through Melissa. He's recovered and has come back to repeat his senior year. But whether it's due to the chemotherapy or the heartbreak, his grades have really plummeted. Oh, really? Melissa noticed my lack of interest and decided to switch topics to something more intriguing. So, how are things with Angelo? I chuckled as Angelo, who was across the street, was already buying me a milk tea. He's still pursuing me. A teacher-student romance with an older guy. Ooh, how taboo and exciting. Melissa had always been a fan of shipping me with someone, and Angelo was no exception. Angelo's university was in the same city as mine. Not long after I started my first year, he began visiting me frequently, taking me out to explore this ancient city, rich with history and culture. Having lived 2 lives, although not long ones, I could easily read the subtle signs of affection between adults. Angelo had a clean, neat haircut. He was tall, handsome, and incredibly considerate, but he had a habit of treating me like a child, occasionally tapping me on the forehead. When he confessed his feelings to me, I took a long time to figure out when exactly he had started liking me. Angelo took my hand as we walked down the tree-lined campus path, leaves crunching beneath our feet. Actually, we met when we were kids. I'm 2 years older than you, and we used to live in the same residential complex. I often played with you and the other kindergarten kids, playing games like tag. Then, when I started elementary school, my family moved away. I vaguely remembered having an older brother figure like that, but it was so long ago. Many families had moved out of the complex over the years. I only stayed close with Hugh, and our bond was the strongest. I've always known about you, and when I heard your family was looking for a tutor, I volunteered. But you didn't recognize me and kept calling me teacher all the time. I laughed. No wonder you kept insisting I call you brother. Angelo took the opportunity to hug me, patting my hand as he said, "That way. We're not too far apart in age, and we can even count as childhood sweethearts." Childhood sweethearts? Yes. Who wouldn't count as childhood sweethearts at this point? Chapter 24. During the New Year's break in my first year of university, Angelo came to visit my family. My parents welcomed him with smiles, exchanging glances filled with satisfaction that needed no words. I asked Angelo why he was here. Angelo scratched his head. "To pay New Year's greetings, and to see you." I couldn't help but smile. Angelo then added, "There's also something I wanted to discuss with your parents." "What's that?" "Well, it's about getting their blessing." Just as I was about to tease Angelo, the doorbell rang. When my dad opened the door, his expression became a bit complicated. The next moment, Hugh walked in. He happened to catch me peeling an orange for Angelo. Mr. and Mrs. Sun, who were behind him, saw it too. The expressions on all three of their faces were quite a sight. I guess they had come to make amends, so I quickly found an excuse and left with Angelo. As my dad was closing the door, he made sure to tell the Sun family inside. "Angelo is Grace's boyfriend. He came to see us for the new year." Angelo walked ahead of me, and I wasn't sure if he heard that or not. During the new year, most places were crowded, so Angelo and I went to Melissa's villa instead. Melissa had the whole floor to herself, even with more guests in the house. She wasn't one to entertain them. She'd hide upstairs, claiming to study, and no one dared to disturb her. She kept glancing at Angelo, her eyes curving into crescent moons with her smile. "So you're actually Mr. Jiang, the teacher." After just a few words, Angelo excused himself to the balcony for some fresh air. I could tell he was getting a little flustered. Melissa whispered to me, "He's so much better than Hugh." I told her about Hugh and his family visiting my house. Melissa scoffed. "Back when he lost interest in you, he said you were just neighbors. Now that you're not even neighbors anymore, what's he doing at your place?" I didn't care what he wanted. Hugh had only been able to hurt me because I liked him. Now, I'm still hoping he dies. Unfortunately, it seems the illness didn't finish the job. Melissa continued. "Hugh's been acting weird since he came back. He can't keep up with his studies, and now he wants to go into business with his dad. The homeroom teacher has tried to talk him out of it several times. With his foundation, he still has a good chance of getting into a top university." An idea suddenly formed in my mind, and it wasn't long before it was confirmed. Chapter 25. After Angelo dropped me off at home, I unexpectedly ran into Hugh in the hallway. Hugh stared at me intently. "Grace, you're back too, aren't you?" Hugh had really come back. That look in his eyes was both familiar and strange. It was like the desperate longing of a traveler in the desert, hoping to see an oasis. I steadied myself. "This is my home. What's wrong with me coming back?" Hugh let out a wistful laugh. "Grace, I've studied micro-expressions. You can't lie to me. We know each other too well." Hugh grabbed my arm. "Grace, I remember everything. In this life, Daniella actually abandoned me. She was ungrateful, and I've already paid for it. But Grace, the one I can't let go of the most is you." I was terrified. How could I not be? He was the one who pushed me down the stairs in my past life, the murderer. I took the chance to shake him off and ran frantically toward my front door. The door swung open, and the light from inside spilled out. It was my mom who had come out. Having heard the commotion, "Hugh, what are you doing?" I hid behind her. My dad came out too. "We've already made it clear to your parents today that you and Grace are absolutely impossible. Why are you still here?" Hugh didn't say anything, just looked at me with deep sorrow. I couldn't bear to look at him anymore. Hugh was taken away, forcibly, by his parents. My dad, disregarding years of friendship, issued a stern warning. "If Hugh dares to set foot in this neighborhood again, I'll have him sent straight to the police station." Mr. and Mrs. Sun, who had gone through so much to save Hugh, certainly didn't want his record tainted. In front of my parents, they even hit Hugh a few times, as if to vent their anger. My dad, mercilessly, told them to get lost. Chapter 26. I guess that Hugh must have returned while he was still undergoing treatment last year. But why did he come back? And after returning, why didn't he go straight to find Daniella? He hated me so much, blaming me for Daniella's death. So why did he now say that I was the one he couldn't let go of? No matter how many questions I had, they couldn't quell my fear of him. I had worked so hard to build a new life, to find a new love, to have a fresh start. If he wasn't willing to let me go, would I lose all of this? No. I absolutely wouldn't let that happen. Chapter 27. Hugh kept sending me WeChat messages, asking to meet and talk. What was there left for us to talk about? Hugh seemed to sense my reluctance. I owe you, and I need to repay that debt. I glanced at the message but still didn't reply. How could he ever repay the life he took from me? Late at night, in a state between sleep and wakefulness, it felt like I was back in my past life. There was a meticulously chosen Western restaurant, where without any prior notice, Hugh took out a ring and got down on one knee to propose to me. It was the moment I had waited for so many years to arrive. How could I have refused? After accepting Hugh's proposal, I was so emotional that I cried and ruined my makeup, forcing me to go to the restroom to fix it. There, I overheard a conversation between Hugh and someone else. One of the guests was a renowned doctor whom Hugh's hospital had recently brought in from abroad. Hugh was vying for a spot on a hospital project and needed the doctor's approval. So, he had chosen this restaurant, a favorite of the doctor's, and staged the proposal to leave a strong impression that he was responsible and stable. The dream I had waited so long for. It had come true, but it was all tainted by ulterior motives. Did Hugh truly love me? In my past life, I was only fooling myself. At least he's willing to marry me, to take the next step in life with me. But now, I'm with Angelo. The love I have now is nothing like the one-sided devotion I experienced in my past life. I can clearly see what true love is, love that is good for both people. Chapter 28. I agreed to meet with Hugh. He wanted to atone, and I gave him the chance. But with conditions. The meeting had to take place in another city. In that city, I had relatives who followed me discreetly, ensuring I wouldn't be taken advantage of. It was a flashy nightclub, filled with neon lights and loud music. Daniella, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, was there, wearing a revealing short skirt and dancing provocatively in the center of the dance floor. Her lace lingerie peeked out with every move, drawing cheers and whistles from the surrounding men. After her performance, she flitted through the crowd like a butterfly and finally settled on the lap of a rich playboy in one of the VIP booths. That playboy had taken her in as his mistress. She no longer went to school, nor did she sell vegetables. Now, she was a well-kept little rose. Hugh watched the scene with cold eyes. He recognized the playboy. It was the same man Daniella had argued with on the street back then. That dazzling Daniella had not only captivated Hugh but had also ensnared the playboy. Daniella's love for Hugh might have been genuine at first, but when had it turned into something else? I didn't know. Hugh and I knew each other too well. So well that I knew exactly how to make him feel the pain of 1,000 arrows piercing his heart. Living 2 lives hadn't taught Hugh patience. He grabbed a bottle of liquor and approached, but instead of smashing it over the playboy's head, he smashed it on Daniella's face. Chapter 29. Before the police took Hugh away, he said to me, in my past life, Daniella didn't commit suicide because of depression. She was pregnant and needed someone to be the father. When the playboy found out, he forced her to take pills and staged the suicide scene. When I found out, it was too late. I thought in this life I could start over with you. But then you came back too. You fear me, and you hate me. I can see it in your eyes. There's no way we could ever be together in this life. Grace, I'm repaying you with this life. I'm sorry. So it turns out Hugh wasn't as clever as I'd imagined. Despite being a psychologist, he had been easily fooled by Daniella's facade. I thought he truly loved Daniella. That's why he didn't mind her past or her abrupt departure all those years ago. I didn't expect things to be like this. In the end, it was the allure of that unattainable wild rose from his youth that had bewitched him. But now, Daniella was disfigured. The playboy might be rich, but it didn't mean he'd be willing to pay for her treatment. Daniella's parents insisted that Hugh must go to prison. Good. They didn't deserve a happy future anyway. Mr. and Mrs. Sun's hair turned gray overnight, but not long after, they got divorced. My dad said, old Sun had another family outside, with a child who's 7 or 8 years old. He stayed married only because of Hugh, but now, after Hugh finally recovered, he went and did something so foolish. My mom added, Mrs. Sun wasn't any better. To secure her future, she hired a young maid from the countryside to take care of Hugh, and she got pregnant. After Hugh recovered and was discharged from the hospital, Mrs. Sun went back to the countryside to force the girl to have an abortion. After Hugh was arrested, the poor maid's family had no money and caused a scene at our old neighborhood. That's how everything came to light. These were things I had no idea about in my past life when I was engaged to Hugh. No wonder Hugh had lashed out at Daniella so viciously. It was probably because he was utterly broken. His family had too many ugly truths. In this life, Hugh lost the career he was so proud of and the fame and fortune that were within his grasp. Not only did he relapse into a serious illness, but he also had to face the absurd mess his family had become. How did he survive his cancer treatment? Was it the child the maid was carrying that kept him going? No matter how many reasons or excuses he had, they couldn't hide the fact that Hugh was a vile person. In this life, with me and Daniella no longer at his bedside, he found someone else to take our place, a maid. Each one of us was just a tool for him. Hugh was never worthy of my love, and he certainly wasn't worthy to love me. Chapter 30. 3 more years passed. I was about to graduate from my senior year, and Angelo had already graduated and moved to work at a major company in Beijing. Angelo called to update me. I've already rented a place. It's close to the university where you'll be taking your graduate exams. The area is surrounded by hutongs and historical sites. You can roam the streets as much as you like. His words warmed my heart. From studies and work to leisure and play, he had thought of everything for me. Angelo, why are you so good to me? Angelo chuckled softly. Aren't you good to me too? Every year, you get me new scarves and gloves. Even Melissa said. Compared to before, when it was like throwing a meat bun to a dog, Angelo really loves you a lot. She then added, with a hint of jealousy. My boyfriend can't even do that. Oh, Grace. I want new scarves and gloves too. Needing some materials for my graduate exams, I went back home. It was then that I learned from my parents about Hugh. He had died. The leukemia had relapsed. This time, not even his closest relatives were by his side. I had been reborn and welcomed a brand new life. Hugh had been reborn only to face a second, then a third round of chemotherapy. With no achievements to his name, betrayed by his true love, abandoned by his parents. Chapter 31. Hugh left behind a letter, which took more than half a year to find its way from his mother's hands to my home. My parents thought that people often speak kindly when they're close to death. I glanced at the envelope and noticed it had been opened and resealed. As if many others had read it before it reached me. A second-hand farewell letter. It was cheap. Chapter 32. After my rebirth, I had 2 simple goals. 1. Wait for Hugh to die. 2. Make sure he dies far away from me. After so many years, this outcome could finally be called a happy ending. Outside the car window, the sun was shining brightly. Birds were singing, and the flowers were in full bloom. In this life, I have my family, dear friends, and a true love. I can look forward to the next chapter of life with them, moving toward a brighter future.